So, this is going to be
Doing
quick.
your best financial interest.
This is actually the most packed webinar we've ever had. I've never had this many questions. If you do have a question, you could use the online module to submit that to me in VR. What we're going to do, we're going to get right to the meat and potatoes. Most of the time, we go who go over who that person is. We all know who VR is. This is probably his third or fourth webinar already. We're going to get right into the fake moves, and right from there, we're going to start knocking out these questions one by one. So VR, I'm not even going to have time to bust your balls on that
No
cheesy ass.
biography. No biography in
No,
this one. You guys just
no
asked us
biography. We're
for that.
skipping right over the row house to the penthouse. Boom. Moving
All
on.
over.
I'm not even going to bust your balls on that fruity ass shirt you had. So the first
I'm
thing,
not
let's
back
get.
tanning as we speak.
I'm sure you are. You're probably in the mirror. You probably got some incense candles in the background. So let's get
Never been in a
right.
mirror I didn't like.
Let's get right to the nitty gritty. Fake moves. You got your daily content. You're working Twitter hard. Tons of views. Tons of questions. What is it? What's it about?
The daily audio, man, I'm telling you, it's something you need as a sports bettor, because right now, the way the betting market is, if you're just a market reader, and every handicapper has to be able to read the market. I mean, it's all what it comes down to. At the end of the day, that's what this is. It's a market like anything else. It all comes down to price. And the way the game's changed so much, if you don't have accurate information as far as being able to confirm what some of these moves mean, you're going to end up on the wrong side more times than not, because from the days that I moved Steam, things have really changed. The betting syndicates aren't getting down anymore the way they used to, because of the fact everyone is moving their lines off air, meaning back in the day, for you to know a Steam play was coming in, someone had to bet it. I had to walk into the Stardust, bet the game, because I represented a known syndicate, because I was a guy known as moving Steam. They knew this was a play and they were going to move it. Regardless of what sportsbook I went to, they'd move it. And there was a lot of guys like myself doing the exact same thing. And you're labeled as a runner, a mover, call it what you will. So the sportsbooks needed us to go in, bet the game, and they knew it was a move, and they moved their line. Nowadays, everybody has a line service. Even your most recreational $25 bettor can go online and pretty much get updated odds that for free, that are only going to be a couple minutes off, meaning, they won't be real time, but they'll be about a 5-minute delay at the most for free. If you pay for it, you'll get real time. And now what happens, those sports books are doing the exact same thing. They're sitting there and they're looking online, and when a sharp book like Penny moves it, the Greek moves it, Chris moves it, which are three books known for taking action from the most respected bettors, then every single book in the country is going to move it as well. The Vegas books are going to move it. Your local's going to move it because he has a line service, and he'll never have to take a bet from a wise guy, and he'll be able to move his line and not get bet into. So for us to be able to get big money down, it's done differently now. Most of the biggest moves never hit the board.
Exactly, VR. And what a lot of people say offshore and odds makers that I've talked to is they say a lot of people aren't bookies anymore and they're moving on air. And in one of the past webinars that we did is I had a guy that came to me, was looking for outs, was going to give me a kickback. I lined him up with a bunch of accounts. I thought I was doing a good job because there were places taking sharp action, the Catalina, Grande, Pinnacle. And he came back and turned me down. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I go, they're willing to take action. They don't care if you're sharp. You could bet big. I don't understand the problem. And his exact words to me were, they make too much noise. We need the outs where we can hammer tons of bets, and it's not going to hit the screen, because once Grande moves, everyone else moves, and we're dead. We need Bet Me, Fat Mo.
Every single out, local out, every bookie now, there's no longer the pizza shop bookie. Everybody uses a paperhead site. And the goal is to acquire as many of those outs as you possibly can. Most of the betting syndicates have hundreds of books across the country. And when a Steam play, a big position comes in, the way it gets moved today is by simply betting $300 to $500 through every one of those books pretty much simultaneously. Not the books here in Vegas that are online, not the offshore books that are online. Instead, they're being hit through locals because no one's going to pay attention to a $300, $500 bet, especially when it's camouflaged with other pieces, because you could work middles, you could work scalps, you could put in all kind of different action, and what you're doing is camouflaging the biggest moves. And they never reach the offshore books or the betting market. Sometimes word gets out and it gets piggybacked, and then a half hour later you'll see it move at a lot of these books. But most of the time, the biggest moves aren't played like that anymore.
And real quick, VR, because I know people, me and you talked about this, so I know people who just heard you say that are going, so does that mean they got 300 people? And this is something, anyone who's watched at pregame.tv, the video I did with Wise Guy Frank, at the beginning of football season, literally one of their partners' jobs is to line up as many outs as possible. And what is happening is there's actual programs, and VR, you could jump in any time if what I'm saying isn't true. And it's funny because you said the exact same thing I'm about to say when we spoke, is they get these programs that will literally sync. So not just an autofill like where it says remember your password. They get programs programmed to their account, what their limits are. They'll go in there, so they'll get game 417 plus 3. They'll put it in there, hit a button, and hundreds of outs all at the same time will get bet. And even a step further for the funny part is some of the guys that I know are setting up these accounts and helping move, they in turn have their own programs that monitor those accounts. So when they know if the Greek's playing in certain accounts or someone's moving for Billy or whatever it is, Billy's using an account or whoever it may be to hit multiple outs at once. These guys are using programs to monitor the accounts, so when the accounts they have tagged as Billy's or the Russians or guys from down south, they get alerts to say this was just bet in this account, and then they turn around and bet it. So it's literally almost like how the stock market is, where with these programs and algorithms where everything is done in milliseconds. So VR, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I knew some people were wondering when you said that, like, how is it even possible?
That's exactly how it's done. It's all programmed. I mean, the one office that I've stopped by and seen the operation, it's 10 laptops set up with all of them running the same program. And it's books all across the country. And like you said, you punch in the game number, the amount, and you're betting them simultaneously through all these books. And that's why there's more dummy moves, more head fakes, more funny money bets than I've ever seen before in my life. Because what happens is you bet some of these plays early on those online books. They adjust it, word gets out, it gets piggybacked, the line continues to climb, and then all of a sudden, the true steam comes in on the opposite side through these local outs a half hour before game time, and the whole time, majority of market readers are on the wrong side, and they never see the line ever change. Mm-hmm. They're thinking, the line went up from -3 up to 4.5, and really, the whole goal was to get +4.5, not to lay -3.5. But they're getting that +4.5 through all these locals. So the game's still going to go off at -4.5. It's never going to come back down because the true steam's actually on the dog. But instead, it looks like the favorite was the position when nothing could be further from the truth. All it took was a little bit of funny money early from a respected, betting syndicate, a respected runner, call it what you will, and the books are going to start to move it. And it's done a lot with these big favorites that are public bet teams as well, because the book knows they're going to be exposed. You know you're going to be exposed on certain teams. Every bookmaker could look at the board and know exactly where they're going to be heavy. You look at a board like tonight, you know you're going to be heavy on Atlanta against Orlando. You know you're going to be heavy on a side like New York or every single night. Teams like that, you look in college basketball, your Michigans, your Dukes, they're always going to get money. In NHL, your Pittsburghs, your Rangers, they're always going to get money. So as a book, you know who's going to get money, and so do the wise guys in betting syndicates. So if you could get down a little bit on these games early when the line comes out, now the book thinks not only are the public going to be on it, but now it's a sharp move as well. They're going to over-adjust, and that's when right before game time, about a half an hour before, the real side comes in, and more times than not, it's on the underdog, but it never hits the board. And I think that's why I really decided to do this audio, to more or less pull the curtain back and let even your casual bettors see what's really going on, because there's so much going on behind the scenes. You could be a great handicapper, and that's a great skill to have. But at the end of the day, it's always about price, because at the right price, every team has value, and at the wrong price, the best teams have no value. And what people forget more times than not is that a line will reach a point where there's no value anymore, meaning Team A might be one of the biggest theme plays ever, and yet because of the line adjustment, the value's gone, because if it wasn't, it would keep getting bet into. What you got to remember is for the betting syndicates, the most respected bettors, the guys that win the most, if they're going to stop betting a game, it's not because they got enough money down. It's because there's no more value on the game. Because as a professional bettor, your goal is to keep getting money down. If you're getting the best of it, you need to put your bankroll into play. It's kind of like blackjack. You know, sitting down at a blackjack table, even if you're an advantage player, you're going to lose more hands than you're going to win. But the goal is, during those times that the coin has flipped and you have the edge, you got to bet big. And that's exactly what these betting syndicates do. When they have the edge, they're going to bet into it. You're going to get your money down when you're getting the best of it. You know it's positive EV. So the goal is to get as much money down and keep getting it down. Most have the bankroll to overcome fluctuation in tough stretches, unlike the casual bettor. So if they're going to stop betting a game, it's simply because there's no more line value. And that's where you got to be careful about piggybacking. And many times, surprisingly, but not surprisingly actually, eventually it gets to a point where the other side now offers the value.
Exactly.
You got to remember, these guys aren't working together. It's everybody out for themselves, and one group may see value on the favorite, but after it moves a point and a half, 2 points, 3 points at times, all of a sudden now the dog may look attractive to another group. So you got to be real careful when you're trying to, identify what if you're one of those bettors that want to piggyback the true steam. And the bottom line is, why wouldn't you? If you know long term these guys cash more tickets than they trash, that's where I want to get my money down on, because they have access to information and things like that the casual bettor doesn't. And no matter how good of a handicapper you are, at the end of the day, you got to treat this like a betting market. You got to look at a line like it's a price. And sometimes the price is too high, sometimes it's too low. But if you start looking at it just like these are teams, truthfully, I think you have no shot at all of making money long term, because you're going to be getting your money down when you have the worst of it. And if you do that enough, you're going to go broke.
Exactly. And it kind of correlates to, when you hear poker stories, when you hear someone just say, oh, I lost with this hand, and that's the extent of their story, versus someone, I was sitting here, they had this, the pot was this, so I had to make this call, where they know all the true math. For example, on the Super Bowl, is I took as much as I could on Baltimore, and earlier in the week when it got down to minus 160, minus 165, I hammered San Francisco. By Saturday and Sunday, that line was up to minus 200, minus 220. Same team, same game, same everything, but it no longer, like you said, had the value. I was betting the number, and San Francisco not scoring that touchdown cost me like $12,000 because I had a shitload of money on San Francisco minus 160, minus 165, in Baltimore at 4 or better. But the point is what you just said. I was betting strictly on math because I felt I was getting value at San Francisco that low, but at minus 220, I no longer like San Francisco because I'm now overpaying for it, because that should be minus 185, minus 180, not minus 200. So
that's the biggest mistake casual bettors make, that they look at point spreads, they look at lines before they have an idea of what they think the line should be. Now, granted, I'm not saying that every casual bettor should make power ratings for all 300 college basketball teams, or every, Division I college football team, or every NFL team, what have you. But you should not look at the betting lines before you at least have an idea in your mind what the number should be. It's kind of like going into a car dealership and going shopping for a car without doing a little bit of research on your own and saying, you know what, this is what the price should be. Otherwise, you're going in there blind. You have no idea if you're getting a good price or if you're getting robbed. So you're going to go in there already with a price in your mind of what that car should be worth. And it's the same thing if you're going to bet a game. Why would you ever look at what the sportsbook hangs up? They may tell you Team A is the favorite, but you personally, without having looked up, doing your homework, doing your work, you may come to the conclusion that actually Team B should be favored. So when you look up and they have Team A favored, all of a sudden Team B looks like they've got value. That's a team you're going to want to bet. So that's one of the mistakes I think that casual bettors make, is that they let the sports books the odds makers already give them a bias on what the number should be, who the better team is. And that's by design. They want to have you biased. They shade these numbers towards your bias. That's how they make money. That's why when you look at the end of the year, the amount of money the sports books make isn't just that 4.5% hold, which is what they get when you have to lay 11 to 10. Sure, add parlays, teasers, prompts, all that stuff, the hold should be higher, but still, it's astronomical based on the money bet because of the fact people are taking so much the worst of it, meaning they're betting into these shaded numbers without ever thinking that, you know what, maybe this line doesn't have value anymore. Sure, I wanted to bet the Green Bay Packers, but I wanted to bet them when they were -6.
Exactly.
Now that they're -7.5, why would I ever want to get my money down on the Green Bay Packers anymore? So you have to look at it like it's a number and not a team.
And there's a lot of people on this webinar who weren't on any of the past ones. So a couple of people were on the first few that we did. I apologize if you heard this story before, but this kind of shows exactly what you said. Is a couple years back when Pinnacle still had U.S. customers, I was doing a lot of scalping in Midland, and I actually ran a spreadsheet, and it was like 150 games that I logged, and it was the line before it got hit, which was the Pinnacle move, and then it was afterwards. So at the end of the bottom of the spreadsheet, it's exact same team, exact same selection. So the side or the over, the under, whatever it may be, but one column was plus and one was negative. And the negative column was the steam chasing number, where, oh, this is the hot play. Michigan's the play. The wise guys like the over. Well, the wise guys like, the Tigers at -140, it's -160. And enough times you land that shitball number and you're just blanket chasing steam, in the end, you are not going to win. You just can't. Unless you're getting that original number at least close to it, where, like you said, VR, where there's value. Like I've seen where maybe a number's gotten hit. Maybe they like the team +7 in basketball and it's down to 6. Yes, it's moved, but they might like it all the way down to 5. It's hard to always know that, but there is sometimes value chasing certain steam if it's a strong play. But if you keep getting in to the party after the fact, if you're the one who's going up to the VIP room with the Russian stripper at 1:58 a.m., 2 minutes before the strip club closes, you're obviously not getting the best of it at that point. So I guess before we get to the Q&A, what would be your best advice? Because there's a lot of people who follow sports options, Don Best, watching lines, following stuff on Twitter. What's the best advice you can give somebody without actually knowing who's putting in the moves to try at least eliminating some of this stuff of things to look for to not fall for a fake move?
Okay, number one, focus on the non-marquee teams, the non-marquee games. In college basketball, we all know who they are. In a day like today, I'm just looking at the board, and I could pick out so many matchups that aren't marquee. Tulane, Southern Mississippi, Rice, Marshall, Ohio, Central Michigan, Toledo, Buffalo. Those aren't marquee games. Those type of games, more times than not, the move's going to be true, and here's why. Because the sports books can't depend on the betting public coming in to balance any of the wise guy money. And the wise guys can't depend on the betting public knocking the number out of whack to where there's value. Because you got to remember, the way the betting syndicates work is simple. As soon as the lines go up, you have an idea of what games you already want based on the numbers you came up with. But then, throughout the day, you're looking for those lines that get knocked out of whack. And the way they do so is simple. Betting public starts to bet the games, or there's an injury, or there's weather, or something to knock a line out of whack. Otherwise, you've already gotten down most of your plays because you're racing everyone else to the best numbers. I'm not talking about setups and things like that. Just straight regular steam plays. This is what I like, bottom line. If you don't have access to that and you're just looking at the lines and you're trying to distinguish which of these are possibly the right side as far as what the wise guys think, I would focus in on those games. Because more times than not, if you're seeing a move on games like that, it's a true move. If you check and there's no major injury, more times than not, it's a true steam move. And because those games have limits, meaning smaller limits, especially through a lot of locals, you're forced to have to bet those through some of those online shops. Most of the locals I use aren't going to let me bet the limits I like to bet on a lot of those games. And I'm going to have to hit some of these sports books here. I'm going to have to use some of the bigger outs because they don't want the action. If I keep burying them with Rice and Bowling Greens and Ohio's and Toledo's, rest assured, I'm not going to be having that book for very long. He's going to drop me. So I know not to bury them with those kind of plays because they're not going to get enough square money the other way to offset what I'm going to beat them for long term. As long as I'm mixing it in, I'm okay. But once I start firing just those kind of plays, then I'm going to get dropped. And every wise guy on the planet knows that. So with games like that, a lot of times you're forced to bite the bullet and know the market's going to move, but you try to get down as quickly as you can, as many places as you can, before the whole market moves all over the place. So I would really focus on those I'm not saying just that conference in general, but on those games that you could look at a board every day and say, you know what, this isn't marquee. I could look at the NBA board today and tell you, Utah, Minnesota, Portland, New Orleans, they're not marquee games. You know, now obviously you look at the Knicks game, that's going to be a marquee game. You see San Antonio, even though they're playing Cleveland, that's going to attract betting action. Marquee teams attract betting action, or marquee matchups attract betting action. And those are the ones that are set up mostly for what you want to do later. Those attract the more funny money, the more dummy moves are based on those kind of games. And those are the kind of games you could get down and never hit the board, because every bookie in the planet's going to welcome the action. When I bet them Cleveland, when I bet them Orlando Magic today, they're going to thank me because the betting public's destroyed them on Atlanta, on San Antonio. So my action's going to be welcome, and I could get away with firing on those games. So that's my advice. First and foremost, if you want to keep it simple and you're going to piggyback, start by isolating those non-marquee games and marquee teams.
Real quick, is Nolan wants to say what's up. He says, Vegas, it's your boy Nolan. Bet 10 units on your Magic pick tonight. Do I got this in the bag? So when you just said the Magic guy to give him some love, I would say about a third of the question
was over as soon as I bet it, Tom.
About a third of the questions popped up are all similar. So if it's not worded exactly how someone who's listening's question was, just assume that this pertains to you too. Tons of people are asking the infamous question I always get. When you monitor the public betting percentages, whether it's through a sports option, sports insight, sportsbook, SPY, is there anything that you can monitor the higher percentage in the line move? And this is something I want to show somebody. Give me 1 second. This right here, and this is one of the feeds. This is from Sports Interaction, and this is one of the reasons you can't put too much overemphasis on this, because this is all this is. If people are telling you they're seeing the amount of bets in terms of money, then they're full of shit, because I've seen all these back ends. Look right here. This is, let's go find, these are the games that are still live. This is all these feeds get. This is the data from the sports book. This is real time right here. Game 707, 39% of their action at Sports Interaction is on the Nuggets, 61% is on the Nets, 66% on the over, 34% on the under. The reason I'm showing you this is the fact this doesn't show you if there's 100 people betting $50 and one dude fired 2 dimes who's a wise guy. So you could somewhat maybe factor in the public percentages. But the other thing you got to be concerned about when you're looking at those numbers, when people think that they're accurate, is say you're getting the percentages from Bodog in their heyday. A Bodog in their heyday is probably worth 50 sports books combined, but those averages are taking everything and put it equal. Also, if you're getting it from a sharp book, is that bet percentage more valuable than something from a book that's not taking any wise guy action? So can you kind of use it to maybe somewhat get an idea of how legitimate that move is if the public is overwhelming on a side and it's going on the other way? Possibly, like VR said, on more of a marquee game per se, because there could be enough action that they have a vested interest in it, versus if you're seeing 80% on Podunk U, well, they might only have 5 freaking people betting the damn game anyways. So how much does that really show for value? So VR, before we start knocking out these questions, is there anything else? I know the big one you just went over on the fake moves. Is there anything else that you want to add in terms of fake moves?
As far as looking at betting percentages, man, I think the biggest mistake that people make, just from conversations I hear and seeing what people tweet out and what they write, they make the mistake of not realizing that what you're looking at is ticket count and not money wagered. No sportsbook's going to let you know the money that's being wagered. They're going to let you know the ticket count. And for me, as a professional bettor and a market reader, that means very little to me, because I know there's two things that move lines besides injuries, suspensions, weather, factors like that. There's only two things that move lines: cash or respect. If you're a respected bettor, if they know you have a positive EV, they don't want others betting at that same number, they're going to move their line. Or money, whether it be wise guy money, and many times even public money. When it comes to NFL, playoffs for pretty much all sports, it's public money that moves the lines more than wise guy money. Sure, there's times where the sportsbook's willing to take a position. Those times, more times than not, is when they know the betting syndicates are on the other side. Then they're willing to gamble a little. And if I was going to get 11 to 10, I'd be willing to gamble a little bit more than I do now that I have to lay 11 to 10. With that said, I think that's the mistake that bettors make when they read that kind of information, that they don't realize this is ticket count. And the only thing ticket count reflects is the popularity of the game. That the betting public, they like this side. But it doesn't translate into money bet, because you could get 10 public bettors to walk up there and bet $100 on Team A, and then you get a sharp to walk up there and bet 5 dimes on Team B. Sure, the ticket count may reflect 90% is on Team A, but believe me, that's the side that the sportsbook wants. They don't want Team B, because that's where they're heavy. They got 5,000 of wise guy money on Team B, 1,000 of public money on Team A. Sure, the ticket count may reflect 90% of the actions on Team A, but nothing could be further from the truth. And I think that's where that kind of information gets bettors in trouble, because so many times I see and I read, guys that, I was against the public on this side, or I'm on the side of the sports books. And I'm thinking to myself, are they crazy? Like, that you're not. The sports book needs that side.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much wise guy money the other way. They're begging that the public wins this one. And, of course, there's other times where that's not the case on some marquee games. But I think that's where you got to be real careful. When I get information from the bookmakers that share their info with me, I don't even care about ticket count. I say, give me a rundown of the money. Where are you heavy as far as
exactly?
Money? And then I want to know who bet this money. Meaning, give me a rundown of what the moves were, of who made you heavy.
A couple dimes from a respected guy is worth 30,000 from the public.
Yeah, ticket count doesn't interest me at all.
Real quick,
that's where you got to be cautious.
Is we got 2 minutes left? We haven't got to the Q&A. If you don't mind, VR.
Keep getting that. The worst is people that logged on and thinking the webinar meant live webcam over here. Sorry, ladies. Sorry to
as long as you're wearing something better than that fruity ass shirt you had on last week. If you don't mind, and if anyone wants to hang on, do you want to go like an extra 15 minutes?
Gift's a gift.
My old lady's gonna kill. My old lady's gonna kill me. Can you go 15? Okay, OT, we'll go 15 minutes, and then what we're going to do is we'll schedule another one, make it a full hour, because we just went 30 minutes, and I haven't got the one question.
And we haven't even scratched the surface, baby. You know me. I can go for hours. 15-minute rant.
All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to try getting through as many questions as we can. No offense to anyone I don't get through. VR read off the main bullet points. VR, how does a buy order work? Is this usually a situation where a runner for a known syndicate waits for the line to reach a certain number, and then he's given permission to get down a certain amount of money on that game? So I guess he wants a definition of what's a buy order.
Yeah, one of two ways. The buy order is like this. When I used to move steam, like at the Stardust, every morning I'd get a sheet, and the sheet would have what we thought the line should be. What that was automatic buy orders, meaning once those lines went up, wherever I saw a discrepancy, if I could beat the next guy to the line, I'm going to be able to bet into that number until it gets to where we think the line should be. Okay, that's the way it starts. But then throughout the day, the way it works today is there's certain groups, certain betting syndicates, certain movers that get contacted by, wise guys and other professional betting syndicates, and they'll say, I want to get down, I want the Knicks -5. Obviously, if it's 5, they're going to bet it right there and then. Otherwise, it's a buy order, meaning if this gets to 5, we want some action on it. It may be 5.5 now or 6. But if the line gets to that, then you execute the buy order. Otherwise, it never goes through.
Second question. On these funny money setups, how much money is usually required for a known mover to get down to cause the line to move, resulting in the rest of the books to technically move on air? And then how much money are the syndicates coming in with to bet the other side, middle, or hedge off once they get the line that they want? So
you're going to be surprised at how minimal it takes. Okay, for example, Henry at Pinnacle during the NFL, he won't give these guys 20 dimes during the week, 10 dimes during the week on an NFL game to move the line. Out here in Vegas, at some of these books, if you're a known guy, with a nickel, with a fucking $500 fucking nickel bet, I've had totals moved on me.
I was at stations one time with RJ, and we had sports options up. We were having some drinks, bullshitting, and we saw that Grande got hit on some crappy game. So he said, "F it." He went up there, and I think it was only like a couple $100, might have been like a nickel, and the stations actually moved the line from RJ Bell betting something.
At the Stardust, baseball over under. Total, a baseball total, I kid you not, $300 they gave me. That was it. And every time I bet it, they moved it 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents. Then they moved it a half a run. And I was just so pissed, I swear to you, because it was such an insult that I kept sitting there and I kept taking the worst of it just for the hell of it, just to see them have to keep moving it. So, I mean, it all depends. It depends how well known you are, what betting syndicate you work for, obviously, what kind of run that outfit's having that year. If you're killing totals in baseball like we were that year, of course, they don't want anything to do with it. They might have been giving us a dime 2 months prior, and it gets down to where they're only giving us 300, by the time August rolls around. So it's all going to depend. But people think that it takes tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to move a line, and nothing could be further from the truth. From the right betting syndicate, from the right runner, a 5-dime bet is more than enough to get the whole strip lit up out here. That's for damn sure.
Next question. How do books determine if a bettor is chasing steam? Example, today's UNC Duke total got steam on under this morning. If I place my bet an hour or much later in the day after the steam, would the book consider this steam chasing? Real quick, my opinion, no, because you're probably going to be betting the bad number. And just a heads up, I've seen a lot of these books back ends, and I've seen some of the bigger agent back ends. They have tools in the back end. This is no bullshit that I've seen this, that it reports every morning any player that's won 3 weeks in a row. And I've actually seen agent software that what it will do is you could put an account number in and you could say, I want to see every single bet that they beat the closing number on. I mean, they're so sophisticated now.
At stations, because they have 208 on that Houston Clippers total, and I just bet the under. Everybody's got 207 on that. That's where shop out here. I just fired under 208. I did.
So I gave my answer on the question. If you're betting the bad number, they're probably begging you.
Absolutely right. Unless it's a book that, listen, man, there's so, like, if you're back in Philly, where we all know there's two groups that move money out of Philly, all right? If your cousin happens to be working for that group, and every time he bets them, 10 minutes later you call and you bet the same game, you're going to get dropped right away. Why does he even want the action? But if you're steam chasing, if I know you're calling me and you're just reading the market and you're piggybacking moves that have moved a 1.5, 2 points later, I'll let you bet that with me all day. I'm getting 11 to 10. And I know if it's a sharp book, he knows the most professional, successful, respected, winning sports betting syndicates aren't going to beat today's market with a 2-point difference. It's not going to happen. Not long term, it's not going to happen. There's spots where it could move 3 or 4 points and there's still value. There's circumstances like back in the day. We'd get a buy order it came out and it said any number. You know, when I used to get that in my earpiece, any number, I'd get hard. I'd get so fucking excited because I knew we could bet this and just keep betting it till they say stop betting it.
I'm very proud of you, VR. You went 35 minutes before you said fuck. This is the first webinar I've done with you that it's taken you this long to actually drop the F-bomb.
Yeah, I was very cautious. I'm very cautious. Today.
He had his wife there at the side. Don't say it. Don't say it. Hey, Mike, this is for you. He wants us, and I'll let you take this one, VR, so we don't double up because we got about 10 more minutes and about 2 hours worth of questions. He wants you to explain what a steam move is, as he puts it, Barney style. So I guess how to be a wise guy for dummies. What's a steam move for someone who doesn't know shit about sports betting?
I get that question all the time, man. It's really not a foolish question because how are you going to know? You know what I mean? No question's foolish, bro. So believe me, you got to ask, or else you're never going to know. Here's what it is. It's as simple as this. A steam play is any play that forces the books to move the line because they respect the bettor. That's how I define it, meaning they know that this bettor wins long term, that he has a plus EV every time he places a wager. So they're willing to more or less concede that they're wrong, that their line needs to be adjusted. Now, obviously, there's different definitions of steam plays, you know, but I think that's at the bare, if you want to strip it down, that's what it is. It's a bet that forces the market to move because it comes from a winning sports bettor. That's a steam play to me.
Exactly. And then usually also how you know it's steam is you'll be watching a line service and you'll see a book move a point, point and a half, 2 points on a side, point to 2 points on a total, and literally within seconds, every single sports book also moves. And the reason it's literally impossible, they all got bet at the same time, and it's literally impossible they're all that sided on those bets to move. So it's a move that everyone is just following. Next question, Vegas
like
Runner.
Like Calgary in a couple minutes.
Damn it, we're trying to finish the webinar. I got everybody like running to their computers.
So you know, Calgary in a couple minutes. You'll see some 140s.
Vegas Runner. What sports book do you suggest me and my buddies post up at in Vegas? We're going to go there for 6 full days.
Listen, if you're going to try post up to get comps, there's only couple places you can do that. On the Strip, you're not going to get anything. You won't even get a ticket for a hot dog. You may get free drink tickets at that, and all you got to do is sit at a slot machine for that. So you're not getting anything on the Strip as a sports bettor unless you're going to dump 250. You're going to put a quarter man, a half a man in the cage. Then you're going to get something. You're going to get full R&B. But if you're not putting that kind of money in the cage as a sports bettor, you're not going to get anything. Local outs do places at all the station casinos, all the coast casinos, because they try to attract the locals throughout the year, and they give points for sports betting, not as much as table games or slots, obviously, but at least you get something, and you get towards rooms, towards food, towards stuff like that. But if you're going to post up, if you're just talking, anything under 250 grand, don't expect anything from the Strip sports books.
VR, heading to Las Vegas for March Madness. Stupid question, but do sports books allow you to use a computer while watching the games in the sports books?
Absolutely. Back in the day, you couldn't even have any two-way communicator. It was the funniest thing. Everyone knew who had them, and everyone just looked the other way. I mean, I always had them. But you weren't allowed to have any two-way communication device. They didn't even say phone. Like, it wasn't a sign that said no cell phones. It said no two-way communication devices. And not until a few years ago can you have your cell phone in the sports book. But with that said, they don't want you standing in line using it. They don't want you taking pictures of the betting board. But still, nowadays you could pretty much get away with anything in there.
I don't know if this game started or not yet, but quick question. It does. So you can easily say you like Miami. Someone wanted to know, did you like Miami or Florida State? It looks like Miami's already up 8, so we're going to skip that one. Sorry, Mike, I couldn't get to you in time. I use an odds service which provides me with accurate betting percentages. That goes back to the True Steam question. So, Nav, I'm going to have to dump you on that one. Here we go. Normally, the betting market seems pretty efficient, but lately I've seen huge line moves that have been seemingly from square moves. Two quick examples being 3-point moves. The Detroit-New Orleans game, 3-point move, Dallas-Atlanta, even though both underdogs won straight up. I think the books are overreacting to public bettors having deep pockets after the NFL and nothing bet but NBA and NCAA. Do you think books overreacting, or are public bettors really betting that? I've had people tell me before in big credit shops that there's really no, outside of the Super Bowl, that there's really no public money that they would ever give a shit about. That it's strictly going to be sharp money.
Absolutely not. That's all they care about. Unless it's a primetime TV game that no wise guys betting, no even professional bettors. There's a big difference between being a sharp bettor, a professional bettor, and being a wise guy. There's a very big distinction between the two. But if there's not even sharp action the other way, then maybe a primetime TV game, they'll shade it a little bit. Nothing as significant as a 1.5 points, 2 points, 3 points. More times than not, I think if you looked into that, there was some kind of injury. Now in the NBA, especially a long season, NBA, there's just so many injuries. Each and every night you're seeing these lines move like crazy, both the side and the total. And more times than not, there's always injury-related information.
Yeah, there's a lot of times, too, that I'll think it's a move. And in the old days, I would sit and rush to get the game in, and then I'd realize it, like you said, it was an overreaction to an injury, and I'd kind of screw myself because of line.
The injuries, suspensions, a player coming back, things like that. Factors that have nothing to do with money being wagered.
We got a great question here from Greg Castellano. He wants to know, where do you go to get your beard trimmed? Do you do it in-house, or do you go to someone local?
Actually, I've learned to do it myself. When I do want to treat myself, when I do go pamper, yeah, I get it done. But for the every other day type shaving, I'll do the touch-ups myself.
Next question. We got a couple of minutes, and we're going to get to everyone's coupon. Are these small moves the night before the game in college basketball or the NBA significant, i.e., can we tell if that is wise guy or public bets? If you look at a lot of these books that put up overnights, their limits are usually small or circled. So they're just putting it out there to kind of, most of the time, just to say that, we're the originators or we have overnight lines.
The opening line. No betting syndicate's going to tip their hand for $500.
Exactly. So they're taking some action. They're going to adjust. They're going to fine tune. But those moves you're really seeing on the overnight are just more of people trying to say that they got the biggest balls on the block.
Yeah, and like they do with those stupid prop bets, and then you look at the fine print and they only take $100 on it.
Yeah, exactly. Little off the ball question, but you know what? I love baseball. I know the Atlantis and Reno put a bunch of their early.
I live for it, baby. Listen, man. If it could be year round, I'd do nothing but bet baseball. That's the money sport. That's free money every single day. You could scalp every single day. Besides being able to beat it betting wise, baseball's the best. Baseball's the best.
When does the early season advantage end for betting baseball? That comes from Gene.
When does the early season advantage end? I'd say probably within the first month at the most. You got to remember, in the NFL, 4 weeks in, you've covered 25% of the season. In baseball, they play 162 games. They play every single night, so it's not a quarter of the way in until a certain point. I would say about that mark. I'd say 20% in. So when each team has played about 30 games, a little less than 20%, I'd say within 30 games, not even, maybe a little less than that, maybe about 15% of the season's in the books. I think any early season advantage is gone. I think then that's when perception starts to take form, and that's when you start to take advantage of perception. And then probably at about the 30-35% mark, I think that's when you can really start trusting the data and really start doing some damage because you have such a big sample size. Unlike football, like I said, quarter of the season's over and you only have 4 games worth of data. With Major League Baseball, when 20% of the season's over, you have, 32, more or less, 32, 33 games worth of data. That's a lot of data that you could really draw some strong conclusions with. So that's why, again, another reason I love baseball.
Real quick, before I let VR close everything out, coupon code Vegas10, good for the next 72 hours. I'll take $10 off anything at pregame. That's daily stuff, weekly subscriptions, and we will be putting up second half NBA packages later this in the week. So VR, before we close out,
I'd made the NBA my bitch this year, bro.
You did. You made it your bitch, and you don't got like 17 kids from like.
Keep spanking that ass, baby. 45 3-stars. I'm like 69%. Keep spanking that ass.
Real quick before we close out, is there anything you want to add? I appreciate
a little bit. I had to tout a little bit. What are the Bashers going to do if I didn't?
You know what? I honestly, there was probably people sitting on Twitter just waiting. You know, like the Vegas runner sucks cock. You know, Vegas runner likes little boys. Vegas runner is the Antichrist. And, you know, there's those people sitting there, like just waiting. Like, we told you he couldn't help himself.
I knew it.
He knew he was gonna tout. He was gonna say that he hit his 3 stars. I hate him. He sucks. His earrings are fake and his beard's stupid. He's not even Greek. He's Polish and just goes tanning. Oh, you know, I ain't gonna lie. I got like all the hater sites for pregaming you on like bookmarks, dude. I look at them every now and then, and they do say some funny shit sometimes.
I stopped reading anything, man, so long ago. I love it.
Vegas 10.
Thinking about me, baby. As long as you're thinking about me.
Vegas 10 takes $10 off anyone purchase in the next 72 hours. I want to say thanks a lot, man. You went overtime with me. I want to say thanks to everyone who stayed the extra 15 minutes. Let me know who you want to see the next webinar. I'd love to do one with the VR. I let the people decide. RJ wants me to cycle through
the. They know who they want back on, man.
RJ wants me to cycle through the roster, which I will eventually do. But you know, I think we could do another.
Adrian Peterson in the backfield, you just keep feeding him the ball.
Keep feeding him the ball.
Keep feeding him the ball.
I think we could do another hour for sure, especially with all these questions I can't get to, and I apologize to everyone who I didn't get to. So that's going to do it. I'm Johnny Detroit. He's Vegas Runner. That's all, folks. This will be archived up on the site in the next 24 hours. And as always, from me to you, best of luck, VR. As always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks for you guys for hanging out, man. Thanks for swinging by once again. This is a good time again.